G'day Bomber fans, our VFL team has some big games coming up, so I may as well talk to you about the recent games that have been. I feel like we don't get much VFL content as Essendon fans, and it's always good to know how our AFL listed players are going in the Magoos, so I'll go over each listed player and tell you exactly how they've gone in rounds 4, 5 and 6, but first, a little word from our sponsors. Bomber fans, I'm on a mission to make our fan base the best looking one in the league, which is why I have teamed up with Manscaped to help spread the word, whether it be body grooming gear that you can find in the Performance Package 4.0, which I received recently, or individual items like cologne, foot spray and deodorant. You can find it all at Manscaped. I'll tell you something, when you cram 95,000 supporters into the G, the smell is not pleasant, I can tell you firsthand, so why not spruik up our cheer squad and have it smelling nice and fresh with some Manscaped body wash, and while you're at it, you can make your balls nice and smooth to celebrate the team's good form. If you want to hop on board to help make us the most well-groomed fan base in the comp, simply head over to manscaped.com, add whatever you want to the cart, and use the promo code everything Essendon 20 to save 20%, and we'll even take away the shipping charge. That is 20% off plus free shipping with everything Essendon 20 at manscaped.com. Alright, so from rounds 4 till 6, our team have played in 2 losses against Casey in round 4, Melbourne's VFL side. We got done, they ran over us at halftime, and round 5 we chugged up a lead against the Pies in the VFL. Sounds a bit familiar, not gonna lie, and round 6 was obviously a bye, so let's get into the 12 listed players that have played. We go in order of number. Ben Hobbs played in round 4 against Casey. He was yet again arguably our best. He had 30 disposals, 27 of which were kicks. I just love his energy in the VFL. He wins so much of his own footy, and it's why he was gifted as the sub role against Collingwood and then started against the Geelong Cats the week after, which meant he didn't play in the VFL against the Pies, so it's good to see him in the AFL though. I spoke last video about Lewis Hayes and the fact he looked a bit lost at times with ball in hand. I think he has taken big steps in improving that already. He was in a rough spot in defence against Casey in round 4, but against Collingwood the week after I was really impressed. I think he's already becoming a solid defender back there for the Rezzies, and one we can rely on to compete in the air. He was building nicely already. Bryan returned from injury to play his first game of the year against the Demons in tough conditions. He shone in the ruck though, dominating the hitouts with 31, but around the ground he had 16 touches. Not all were clean, but the week after against Collingwood he was outstanding. He was one of the most impactful on the field. He had 45 hitouts, 17 disposals. He was an aerial threat all day. He really does dominate VFL games even with a lighter frame, pushing towards a possible AFL return if he keeps playing like this. Kaine Baldwin's awesome start to the year was derailed by a nasty concussion that kept him out of 2 games, I believe. He returned against Collingwood in round 5, didn't play against Casey, and honestly he wasn't very good at all against the Pies. It's tough for a player playing in a new position to consistently play well, especially after being sidelined. He looked second rate for most of the game, but showed glimpses here and there. I think the week off will do him well though with the bye, so he can bring his fitness back up again after the break. I still love everything he's done this year. I was pretty critical of Alistair Lord in the last VFL video, and he must have heard me. He was amongst our best in the next game against Casey. He seemed suited to the wet conditions. He used the ball really well on the slippery surface and had 21 disposals. The week after against the Pies, he played on some players that hit the scoreboard a bit, showing he still has work to do on his one-on-one defense if he wants to stay on the Essendon list. It's really great to see Reid return from injury. He played against the Pies. Of course, he has been out for a while, so he was quite rusty and did not play the whole match. With players returning from lengthy injuries, it's just important they get minutes under the belt. I didn't expect him to go out and clunk marks all day. He was poor, but that is fine. He will improve as he gets suited to the speed and physicality of the sport again. Rhett Montgomerie is being trialled in a few different roles. I don't really know if I like him playing higher up the ground, which is where he's been in the last few weeks. He got plenty of the ball against Casey, but I prefer him deeper in defence. He moved back there in periods against the Pies, but I think overall his first 3 games were more impressive than his last 2. I know some who saw him liked the Casey game. He had well over 20 touches, I believe, but I just think that he reads the ball too well and uses his body too well for him not to be deeper in the arc. It has been a quieter couple of weeks for our promising forward Patrick Voss. He was close to selection against the AFL Demons, but in the VFL still kicked a couple against Casey. I actually think this game was one of his more impressive because that Casey defence was stingy. He had a tough day but still presented really well. He was busy against the Pies the week after but couldn't convert his chances. He pushed very high up the field as well though. I saw him competing in their half a bit, which is because we had VFL listed players playing deeper in the forward 50. Tex Wanganeen's form struggles continued against Casey. Our whole forward line had limited ball time, but he especially was poor. He had 6 touches and looked unlike scoring or impacting the game all day. This thankfully changed against Collingwood the week after though. I actually thought he was one of our more impactful forwards in the second half. He had a really strong third quarter, I think it was. He still goes missing a lot in patches, but when he is on the ball, he is really smart with it. He kicked 2 goals. He had some really nice, decent pressure-based moments, just needs to show more throughout games consistently. Massimo D'Ambrosio was back in the VFL for the game against Casey, and I thought he was great. The conditions were poor, but he was really clean. I think Lord and him were fantastic with ball in hand off halfback at times, which really helped spark our attacks, mostly early. This dried up a bit as the game went along. He didn't play against Collingwood the week after because he was an emergency for Anzac Day. Anthony McDonald-Tipungwuti returned to the VFL after his injury and looked alright. He helped Munkara kick his first goal for the Red and Black, which was great, but more importantly, his pressure was red hot, and that's what we needed in the AFL, so it was good to see him play like that, and this is why we eventually saw him named as the emergency for Anzac Day, but also play in the first side against Geelong, which of course meant he didn't play against the Magpies reserve side the week after Casey. And finally, we end with Anthony Munkara. He is getting the hang of things a tad, guys. He is beginning to understand the way the game is played at a high level, which is great. His positioning is improving. I'm noticing it every week, and so too his tank. He still has a long way to go though, but he is playing more and more game time every week, it seems. He kicked his first goal against Casey, which was great. Everyone got around him. Good to shake the monkey off the back, and then he followed up with another against the Pies, but he also looked really decent at times with his defensive pressure, which is great. His closing speed is clearly going to be a real asset when he knows how to use it properly, so he just needs to learn how to use it effectively for 4 quarters. And that is that. Those are the AFL listed players playing through the VFL. The next video should be out after round 9, I reckon, or around that time. I'm trying to space it out in about 3 to 4 round patches, and by then we should have some new players playing as well, and returning players getting comfortable, so get keen for that. Until next time, like if you enjoyed, and subscribe to stay up to date with everything Essendon.